had Christ sprinkled in. You know, it was like a speckle of salt, you know. But other than that, I didn't know about Jesus, right? And my family didn't live by Jesus. So it was like I got a bedtime story maybe and it was about Jesus, but that was the most that I was going to get. Um and growing up, there was a lot of brokenness in my family. Um a lot of fighting amongst relatives and just amongst my family in general. This was both in arguments and sometimes it could get a little bit physical, right? So, just kind of growing up in that, I started to take responsibility for the emotional aspect of my family. At this point, I was about 7 years old. And I tried my best to kind of, in my own way, mediate everything, but I was a kid, so I didn't know how to help or to change the situation that I was in. And while I was in the public schooling system, I was getting like bullied, and my classmates would kind of use me for both my knowledge and for the things that I had, my materials, anything that I had and they didn't have. They would just kind of use me for, and then go back to bullying me. But eventually, as time went on, the brokenness in my family just turned to distance, and I didn't talk to a lot of my family anymore. It was about 80% of my family, I would say, that just I didn't speak to. We didn't have contact. We didn't do holidays together. It was just everybody stayed to themselves. And some of my relatives that I did speak to, they had a lot of anger in them, and this manifested to physical altercations, which I didn't try to defend myself from because I didn't want to get in trouble with any of my family. I kind of wanted to stay in my own bubble, if that makes sense. Just kind of keep my peace in myself because I thought that kind of just taking the punches would keep other people from exploding on me as well. And I would kind of be ashamed of like the marks. Those could have been like bruises, whatever it was during that time. I had like bite marks, bruises, like sometimes cuts. It was just, it was tough, but again, I didn't know Christ, and at this point, I was about 8 to 9 years old, and then eventually, when I was around 11, I changed schools, and I went back to public school because I was homeschooled for a bit, and then I went back to public school. During this school, I didn't experience a lot of bullying. In fact, I was friends with a lot of people that got bullied, but I was always standing up for them just because that's how I was raised. Um, my mom definitely did not raise me to not step in for others. And so I was just kind of trying to help out the best that I could. But my family was still not together in a way that they should have been. And there was still a lot going on for me and my family. And then this just started manifesting into self-hatred. I started to hate myself because I blamed myself for the way that my family was. And eventually I just kind of resorted to bad habits. It started off as like when I got frustrated or overwhelmed with my emotions, I would kind of like smack my leg. And sometimes like I would kind of like, not really, would it be considered punching? I think it would. Yeah, basically like punching my legs. Because I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. That's not something that I grew up with. Emotions were always difficult for me, and I kind of didn't manage them. I wasn't taught how to manage them. I actually just was reprimanded a lot for feeling things. When I was sad, it was always, it's not that serious, you're being dramatic, you're reacting too much, you know, just stop doing that, stop it, stop, it's not even for all that. When I was angry, around the same thing. Or other people would get mad because I was mad or sad. Same, yeah. I think that's really common for our current generation. But it was always, you can't feel these things because you're not valid for feeling these things. And so I just stopped feeling things for a while. And I wanted to feel something. And then growing into middle school, I was around a lot of people that just were bad influences. I'll say that. Was always told to not have an attitude instead of actually learning to understand what I'm feeling and how to deal with it. Yeah. And that's really common in our generation currently. And for the previous generation as well. It's been a thing for, I would say, about 3 generations. And it's just constantly being passed down because they don't know how to manage their own emotions. So they can't teach us, if that makes any sense. But going into middle school, yeah, around 3 generations. I've known friends that their parents dealt with the same thing. There's a lot of people that I know that have gone through the same thing. It's just, I feel like it's a thing that's been passed down a lot. But oh, what's been a thing? I thought you said that. That's been a thing. The how do I explain it? The not being taught how to work through your emotions and instead being told that you're not valid for feeling what you're feeling. And so it just ends up with the child not feeling anything at all because they turned it off. That's been a thing. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. So it looked like it said that. Yeah, that. Gotcha. Yeah. Um, but when I went into not high school, middle school, um, that's when my friends kind of, in a way, led me down a really, really dark rabbit hole. We were all struggling with the same thing, but as kids, what were we supposed to do? You know? And that's where 90% of my attempts were during early middle school. And that's when I started with SH. That's what we're gonna call it. SH. And I was constantly looking for a way out because I didn't feel like I was able to talk to anyone because everyone else had their own problems. My family was, again, invalidating my emotions. And a lot of the times when my family were to find out about what was going on, it was met with anger and with threats, which led me to believe that they didn't care whether I lived or I didn't. And I didn't care either. So I continued. And I just hid it better. I harmed different spots. Ones that were less visible. Ones that you wouldn't be able to see at all, actually. And I was eventually brought to a hospital because, again, I had attempted. And my family didn't respond well to that. It was, again, met with anger. And I realized I was truly on my own. I had nobody. My friends were too self-centered to even listen to me, actually. And then I sought attention and love from men because I didn't feel like I got it with my family. None of them. Not a single one. And so I looked at the attention that I could get, even if it wasn't the best or even the most real attention there was. Because again, everyone just kind of wanted something from me, right? And the men did too. And then I just kind of entertained them, which led to eventually me getting preyed on multiple times. And when that was found out, I was blamed for it because I could have just said no. I could have just not spoken to them. I could have not entertained them. And it was nothing physical, but it was definitely verbal and emotional. And family again didn't help any. It was always my fault. Never met with understanding. It was always anger. And so I just continued to self-isolate. I didn't talk to them really about anything. It was always pretend. I would pretend to reach out. I would pretend to do all of these things, but it wasn't the real me. Nobody knew the real me at that point. I didn't know because I was constantly pretending to be someone I wasn't. Some perfect, gifted child. And that's not who I was. Yeah, I was smart, but there was more to me than that. And then at the age of 14, I started being forced to church, and I couldn't stand that place. I couldn't stand it. I thought it was so cringe. It was so corny, because all they would talk about is the good times. All they would sing about is praise. They didn't talk about the brokenness. They didn't talk about all of these things. It was always, well, God did this for me. God blessed me financially. God healed me. God saved me. Nothing happened for me. Nothing happened. So I just kind of loathed the idea of a big, powerful man staring down at me, watching me drown in the brokenness that I was put in and I was born into, and not reaching a hand out. And eventually, I was like, oh, well, I believe in this man, you know? I'm not gonna read the Bible or pray, but I believe in him, so I'm a Christian, right? That's what Christianity is. My life didn't change. The brokenness didn't change. And I would sit on the floor crying because how could a father hate his child so much? Because in my head, he hated me. Why would he love me? I mean, if he did, would I still be treated this way? Would I still be alone? Would I still have nobody? And then eventually I got sponsored at the age of 15 to go to church camp. And I was like, okay. Oh no, it was 16. I was 16 at the time. At the age of 16, I got sponsored to go to church camp. And that was my first true encounter with the Lord. And honestly, it broke me open in ways that I didn't think I could feel at that point. Because a part of me was still in this solitude where I couldn't cry in public because I was weak. I wasn't weak, so I didn't cry. But that day I cried. I sobbed. I sobbed so, badly. I looked so ugly. It was the ugly cry, guys. It was the ugly cry. I was on my knees, and I realized I couldn't keep living the way I was, because he truly did forgive me, and there was so much that I needed to learn and so much that I needed to heal from, and I gave it to him that day, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take you seriously, even if it's just for a year. I'm gonna truly give you a chance, Lord. And I did. And I made friends. I healed, not from everything, I will say, not from everything, but I healed a lot more than I thought that I was going to. I am clean. I read my word. I pray. All of these things. And I've had true encounters with the Lord. He even jokes on me sometimes, and it's not nice. It's not nice, because why does he gotta clock me like that? But I see him working every day, and I can see people through the light of the Lord now. And I just truly think that he deserves all the glory and all the praise.